All right, guys, what's going on and welcome back. This is episode 16 of the Tipped Out podcast with your hosts here, Brandon Palmer and Danny Christie. So, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, but how was your Thanksgiving?
Lovely, lovely. I actually had my Thanksgiving on Columbus Day weekend, Canadian Thanksgiving,
There you go.
but then I ended up going to Carrie's house, so it was great.
Good, man.
How
Yeah,
was yours? I know Courtney was down there.
yeah, it's been good. She's still here, so she's visiting. And then, yeah, so you might hear some rustling behind me. Her dog will be eating every now and then. But yeah, man, real solid stuff. It's been a little while since we've recorded a podcast. You've been sick recently. You've seems like you've gotten over that. How's that been?
It wasn't COVID. It sucked, bro. It was bad. It's like I literally thought I was gonna die. So no, I thought I had the worst sore throat I've ever had, and it was like I don't know what happened, but it was brutal.
Well, God willing, you are here, and you are going to present today your findings on your recent stuff with Golf Forge and the Ultimate Golf Lesson. So, without further ado, brother, let's hop
Yes.
into that. I'm really pumped to see what you've got for us.
Yeah, totally. I'm excited to kind of show it to you. I hope it's something that you can yourself kind of look at and be like, oh wow, this is really cool, and this is a cool way of keeping track of your stats. So that's exactly what I'm gonna go over is just the kind of way that GameForge goes about keeping stats and how these guys, the names are Mark Sweeney and I believe Brian Bailie, which Mark Sweeney is a statistician, and he created this application to keep stats more effectively, and he kind of breaks it down to these stats that will directly affect your score.
Cool.
So I am going to take you through a couple pictures, a couple graphs here, and just kind of explain to you what they represent. So this first one that we're looking at here will be the offense defense graph, as he likes to put it, meaning offense would be the birdies you score in a round, and defense would be anything that is over par. Well, actually, defense is just bogeys, and then there's noise. And noise is like an eagle or a double, and they have like a ratio for noise. So 0 noise would be it doesn't affect your score at all, and a noise of like 1 would be, it affects your score by one stroke over, and then -1 would be 1 stroke under par. And then obviously birdies and bogeys are pretty self-explanatory because, birdies 1 under, bogeys 1 over. So what's really cool about this is it kind of shows at what skill level you are, what you should be focusing on. So if you look down at the right hand side of the graph, where you can see the scores go up into higher handicapper territory, those guys, you see how birdies kind of flat lines right there?
Yep.
Birdies for guys that are shooting 90 don't really matter as much as just eliminating bogeys or improving your defense is the way you look at it.
Yep.
So once you get to about, like, as you can see there, that's over par. So once you get to about 4 or 5 over par, so you're shooting about 76, 77, then you can start working on really jacking up the birdies and making more birdies. But to actually more effectively lower your scores, you should be more focused on eliminating bogeys as a higher handicap golfer, and the doubles. As you can see, the noise is a straight line, kind of a really big slope down, and then that starts to flatten out the closer you get to even par. So those higher handicappers, it's very kind of evident that you need to focus more on improving your defense and making less big numbers, as opposed to just going out there and trying to make birdies. I think the next thing we're just going to move into is ball striking right there. And I think really the thing that really ties together kind of the way that they talk about improving your score here would be their little revelation of in positions. So in position is a green in regulation, 20 feet and closer. Okay. So if you hit a green and reg to 30 feet, that's not an in position. So what they refer to as in positions or opportunities are times where you've hit it close enough that you have a makeable or more likely than not makeable birdie putt. So that's that inside 20 feet range. And that makes perfect sense because not all green and regs are equal, right? I mean, you hit a green and reg to 50 feet versus a green and reg to 8 feet. There's a big difference there.
Yep.
Okay. And as you can see on that graph, the correlation between greens and regs, in positions, and score is there. You know, as those go up, your score goes up. And in position, as you can see, right around that even par range is kind of where you have to live as someone who's out on the tour. So one thing that I kind of skipped over quick is these scores on the x-axis of the graph are scores for your average score. It's not your handicap. Okay. So tour players live in about the even or the 0 to -2 range.
Okay.
Per round. And then like good college golfers are like 2 over, 1 over, 3 over, kind of that area.
Yep.
And so as you can see, if you want to make it on the tour and be an average ball striker, your in positions have to be at about like 6 to 7. So that's really big for birdie opportunities, and just, you know, the big difference between a green reg that is kind of valuable and a green reg that's not so valuable.
Yep.
And then as you can see, fairways is the white line on that graph, and fairways is not actually that big of an indicator of a better score, which is interesting. I think that's pretty cool.
It is, yeah, definitely both with that fairways thing here, and then just a little tidbit in the last section of the last graph on not focusing on the birdies, but just eliminating the biggest numbers possible out there for higher handicap golfers. Like that's so crucial. Just that little change in perspective will, I feel like, do work wonders for a lot of different golfers. You know, I think about how many times we've hit a tee ball and it misses the fairway and we think the hole's over when, you know, really, I think back to some rounds where I've scrambled. I don't really need to hit many fairways to shoot some of the same scores. It certainly helps, but it's not the biggest correlation. So that's cool.
Yes, yeah, I really find this stuff interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So next thing we're looking at here is, you might have to zoom in on this one, Brandon.
Yep.
But this is actually the next 2 things we're going to be looking at are the numbers of Tiger. And the date on there is from June 1st, 2019 to April 29th, 2020. So this stuff is really cool, and I'm going to go through and kind of just explain some of these data points here.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what they are. And if you look at that dotted line in the middle, that is the dotted line of like the tour pro average. So if his blue lines are to the left of that dotted line, that means he's making up shots. And if they're to the right, he's losing shots in those categories. Okay. And the first thing you're going to look at is that BIP, and that's birdies to in positions. So that's a percentage. So that's the amount of times he's making birdie that he's in position. So inside 20 feet. So this is a kind of an eye-opening statistic to me, because I always feel like, you're like, man, what's the big difference in the round where I go out and I feel like I shot, or I hit it great and I didn't actually score that well, in the round where I hit it not so great, but I scored well. And it's because those times and those opportunities that you have, or those in positions, your conversion rate's just a lot better. So you're making a lot more of those putts, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe you definitely have rounds, right, where you kind of just grind, and maybe you scrape it in at even, but you made like, maybe you were 100% on your in position rates. And then there's the rounds where you're like, man, I hit it great and I had opportunities all day and I just kept missing, and I still shot the same score, right? So I think that's a really cool way of looking at it. And then we got a couple other ones on here. Let's see. I mean, you can kind of go down this list. And then, you know, each one's got its category, right? So after you go through the score and the BIP and then the eagles, birdies, bogeys, doubles, you go down and you've kind of got your ball striking category of fairways, greens, and regs. effective green and reg, which is a green and reg inside 40 feet, in position, which is a green reg inside 20, and then blackjacks, which is in position, or green and reg inside 8 feet. So that's like when you stuff it in there.
Yep.
Then after that category, you go down to the conversion. So that's your putting. That's, you know, how often you're converting any of those green and regs to a birdie. Okay. And as you can see with Tiger, which is kind of cool, he's actually on those in positions. He's actually pretty low, but he's really good at converting the blackjack. So the times that he's inside 8 feet, he's making a ton of those putts.
Yep.
And he's just he's pretty much average on the whole body of 20 feet and in, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
Then you look at pitching and scrambling. So that P6 would be the amount of times that you're pitching it to 6 feet or inside. So this is looking at your scrambling numbers. Then there's P6 conversion. So that's if you're making the putt inside 6 feet. And then there's scrambling as a whole. And then we got all the putting statistics. And the par 5 scoring, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then the last thing we're going to kind of look at here is this training tree for Tiger. So this is kind of the bread and butter. This is where you look at it and you break down what you're lacking in and what he's succeeding in. Okay. And so basically, if you want to improve, what areas of your game you need to work on. So up there, you can see he's got his current score and his target score. So this would be if you're trying to take him from a even par golfer to a 1-under golfer. You've got current birdies, target birdies. He's actually right about there. So Tiger's making about as many birdies as he needs to be. He needs to get 0.1 more birdies per round, but he's actually making quite a few bogeys, which you would like to limit, and maybe get his noise down a little bit, so less big numbers. And if you just kind of break it down, we're just going to look at the offense first. Let me zoom in on that a little bit more. As you can see, the stuff in green right there, Palmer, is stuff he's good at. So the far left, that's all of his putting statistics. He's a phenomenal putter. So everything there is great. His par 5 scoring is great. He takes advantage of the par 5s. He's just pretty much lacking in greens and reg. He's just not hitting enough greens. He's actually hitting his fair share of blackjacks. So he's hitting his fair share of greens to 8 feet and in. But other than that, he's not hitting enough greens. He is not giving himself enough opportunities to kind of take advantage of how great a putter he is.
Isn't that wild?
But overall, his
Arguably
offense
the best iron player in the world, and he doesn't hit greens.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and this is funny because this is just looking at a chunk of time, right? So like this is 2019 to 2020. Like he's been noted throughout his career as one of the best iron players ever, but apparently that's what's slacking right now a little bit. But again, it's really not too bad if you look at it as far as offense, because he's actually pretty much right where he needs to be for birdies. And I think that you could put a good chunk of that on just how good he is at par 5s and how good of a putter he is. Then you can look at the defense, and really what's killing him on the defensive end is greens and reg, which then leaks into his P6%. So he's not hitting enough. He's basically not that great of a chipper or pitcher. Now, me saying that, he's a great chipper pitcher, but he's not where he needs to be tour average.
Yep.
And the 3 putts are killing him a little bit. And I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at there. I think that stuff's so cool, and I'm definitely excited to try to look at my game in these terms. And I feel like it's a really good way of just targeting what you need to work on and know where you need to improve.
100%. Definitely the saying of more isn't always better. It definitely applies to this. And that's why I think stats are so important, is so you can find out what exactly you need the most work on right now and put your time towards that, instead of, we're going out there and I guess, doing the right things are always good. But yeah, I mean, possibly, like you said, his chipping or pitching may need to increase, especially since his green and reg isn't that great. So you really got to work around the big issue and then apply, improve your already good skills even more so. So sometimes,
Yeah.
just working on what we're already good at is also a good option, just as much as carting our stats and finding out where our weak points are too. So I really like that. That's cool.
Totally. One other thing I kind of wanted to point out, which I didn't send you a picture of, which I also thought was cool. I'll probably add it in here. When I edit, there was a chart and it kind of showed the basically it had the LPGA and it had the top whatever spots, sorry. Top 1 through 10 players in the world. And then below that it's got top like 20 through 50, and then 50 to 100, and then maybe like outside 100. And it showed where they were one year versus where someone was the next year. So it showed the percentage of people that moved from one of those categories to another. And basically on average, it's very, very hard to jump like tremendously, right? So the message basically that I want to show in that I feel like that graph shows is people aren't doing this, working on their stuff and going from the 200th ranked player to the top 10 in the world.
Yep.
But you can chip away at it. So if you can just get from, in terms of rankings on the LPGA tour, if you can get from that 200th place to being in the top side, the 150. So just take it in chunks as opposed to, that's all I'm trying to get at with that, right? It's just because you're keeping track and.
Yeah, even when you take it as far as where we're at in terms of caliber, and then the one step further where we, our bread and butter of teaching is the higher handicapper, the beginner, if they narrow it in these things, that's when I think you'd see those huge jumps going from person that's, shooting 100 to, shooting low 90s to high 80s. Like that's crazy. That's night and day. But like you said, on tour, they're so good, they're so tight knit that it is tough. And that's why hats off to those players that do those big jumps, and have a bad year, and then next time you see them, they're, they jump 50 spots back up, and that's wild. That's how someone's really improved or really, playing hot. So stats, man, full circle back to the stats.
Yep. And one last little thing I thought was super cool. I just think it's really obvious, but I think what really makes this stuff so cool is the in position stat. I mean, I think that kind of makes the whole, it's kind of like, oh shoot, like this light bulb, right?
Yep.
The birdies in position conversion is like the biggest indicator. So that'd be your percentage of birdies you make being in position. That's the biggest indicator of the difference between a good college player versus a PGA Tour player. So getting those in positions, maybe going from 4 round to 6 round. And then if you can also increase the amount of birdies you make from those positions from 50% to 65%, that's the difference right there.
Yep.
But that's the difference between being a guy who shoots 74 on average and being a guy who shoots 70 on average.
Yeah. Well, cool. I really like that piece. So going forward for another possible topic here, maybe we can go forward and have some tips, course management, or some even drills players could do to kind of improve in these most sought after areas. That'd be cool.
Definitely.
Nice. Yeah, definitely a cool. You said what is it? G4? What is it?
GameForge.
GameForge, and that's a software, or is that what these guys, the Mike Adams, Terry Rowles, created?
Mike Adams, Terry Rowles did not create it. Mark Sweeney is the guy who created it. I don't know if there's an app, honestly. I know it's something that it's a software for sure, so it's something you could get on your computer, but I don't know if there's an app. I could actually look right now. See if we
Definitely.
can cut
Going forward,
this and go to that.
Let's chat more on some stat stuff, because we just had a cool company, the name slipped my mind, that cool company come to us at Altitude Academy and really kind of a new wave in terms of stats, and a lot of tour pros are getting in on it. A lot of D1 colleges now they're trying to get some academies.
Yeah.
So we'll chat on that because that'll be cool. And I think some of the coaches may get access as well. So if that's a fact, then I want to get you in on that, and we'll do some really more cool stuff with that, because they have like a basic version where it's just all your stats, and they have a pro version, dude, where it's going to give you way more in-depth stats. You can do like practice round planning right through the app, and it's all like satellite images, and it gives you all your past misses. Say I'm choosing tee shot on driver, it gives me a scatter plot on top of this image of the hole. So it shows like,
So
okay,
it's basically saying helps you with club selection on that hole.
exactly. So that was crazy cool for in terms of like the practice round planning. But other than that, they have a team of specialists that go with you through the data and kind of really pick apart how to improve or what to focus on. So I thought that was really cool. It's not even something we have to do here as coaches, but they just have a team of analysts. Yeah, analysts that
Yeah.
just go through and chop up the information. So we'll definitely chat more on that, and we'll bring it into the pod if it's something cool and we get on board with it. But
No, that's super cool, man. Do you know what you can't remember what the name of that was?
no, I think it's like upswing or
Up Game Golf.
yeah, something like that. They're newer.
It might have been Up Game because I've heard of Up Game. But a GameForge does have an app, and one thing that's cool about their system too is you definitely have to pay for it, but it will give you drills based off of what area is your weekend, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of the same thing
also
here.
kind of takes away our job, so I don't know if it's that great.
Yeah, all depends, but that's cool, definitely. Other than that, how has the ultimate golf lesson been? I know I definitely want to do more with that, but
it was great. I'm done with it. I finished. I watched all the videos. It's definitely something that needs to be. You just gotta like trial and error on people, kind of, with the whole. It's kind of like just its own teaching philosophy. So that's been pretty cool. But I've done like screens. I've done the screens, which are the body screens, and then that's supposed to give you the idea and like kind of like the overall like blueprint, I guess would be a word for like kind of what their swing should look like. And then you have to use the right drills from certain things. So it's something that like still feel like I'm just like digging into, but I'm excited to like be giving a lot of lessons and just try to figure out a way to work it into like my own teaching system kind of.
Exactly. I think that's what it is. Really, any piece of research or book or video we've been watching, like I just try and find a way to then transfer it to my own words and see if it fits in, or if it'll just, be relevant one day or one lesson, it'll really work out. But I really like the stuff the little bit that I saw from the initial watch of all of that is the matchups with the grip, side under, cover, over, like that stuff made a lot of sense to me right away. And it seemed like the simplest form of it. It was like one of the first or second videos there was of that series. So interested to get more into that as well. Yeah, I just love using someone else's knowledge or teaching and trying to see how it fits into what I know or would like to teach myself.
Yeah. One thing that I think I'm going to get into, just because like, so at the end, towards the end, they had a panel where they had a bunch of like successful teaching pros on, and some of the advice, everyone gave like advice, and a common piece of advice was get familiar with biomechanics and like anatomy and stuff like that. So I think like I've asked for a couple of books like that for Christmas, and I think that's going to kind of be the next thing I try to learn more about. Would just be more in that area, and then see if that can further. I might honestly rewatch the Ultimate Golf Lesson, because I feel like it's almost like watching like a show. You ever watch like a pretty like in-depth show before, and you watch the whole thing, and then if you rewatch it, it's like you just pick shit up like
100%
on the way through. So I might rewatch it. I don't know, but
cool. Definitely. Well, another eventful and insightful podcast. This was episode 16. And we'll be sure to catch you in the next one. Once again, linked below will be the Instagram for the Tipped Out and for our personal business channels, but our golf specific channels as well. So reach out to us on there or the Tipped Out podcast. We plan to do some live kind of swing analysis on here as well in the future. So if you've got any questions or would like to send in your swing, please do at the Tipped Out Instagram. We'll be sure to catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Contraband got that dope.
Sometimes I don't feel alright. New girl on my face, she says she need your butt. That's why I don't feel alright. Catch me in a good mood, I just might.
Stop talking, I'm breaking the bank.